thank you so much for joining me. I know we've got some big names in other rooms right now, so I'm grateful that you guys are all here. So my conversation tonight is about steps. Sometimes the steps aren't enough. And as someone who's been sober since 1991 through the 12 steps, I don't ever discourage anyone from going through 12-step programs. And sometimes I come across people that have had decades of recovery and are still not comfortable in their skin, right? So I've kind of developed a bridge that can help people that, you know, I meet a lot of people that are anti-12 steps, or I don't want religion forced down my throat, or I don't want to go to meetings, I don't want to identify as a label, I don't agree with the medical model that it's an addiction, that it's a disease, right? So everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'm not here to argue with anyone about whatever they believe. Everyone, you know, just like politics, I believe that whoever you think is best for the office is, you're entitled to that belief, right? So I've created this program, and it's sort of a bridge for people that are looking still for the solution, you know, still uncomfortable in their skin. You know, so people want to believe in something, right? Some people don't have a higher power. So for me, a higher power is important, but if people can't identify with a higher power, it's just a not me solution, right? So maybe it's your higher self, right? Something that you can just hand things over to and not have to handle everything yourself is, I think, always I don't know, if I had to do it all, my best thinking got me in a lot of trouble, right? So if I have to rely on my thinking to get me out of whatever trouble I get myself into, that's a big problem, because it's not a good neighborhood to be in, especially not at night alone, right? So some of my clients have never touched a drink or a drug. They're addicted to their phone, they're addicted to porn, they're addicted to food, they're addicted to worry, they're addicted to their intrusive thoughts, right? It doesn't have to be the typical drug and alcohol recovery, right? We're recovering from life. We're recovering from people pleasing. Recovering from, you know, you name it. So I incorporated Recovery Dharma, which is a Buddhist-based. 12 steps are in there inherently just because I'm 34 years sober. Some Neville Goddard, right, which is Law of Assumption. And a little bit of Satir, Pearls, Dan Burrow. I'm a member of the Master Hypnotist Society, which is a group internationally that have schools and clinics all over the world, really. It was started by Scott McFall, and so it has bloomed out into other countries other than the US. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Casey Pico. I've been sober since June 1991, and I've been in codependency recovery for 14 years. And when I went to codependency recovery, I didn't realize, they were like, you can't just go up and hug people. And I was like, I'm out. I'm a hugger. I'm just gonna go. I had no idea what boundaries were. You know, I didn't grow up with any boundaries. My mother doesn't have any boundaries. My father clearly didn't have any boundaries. You know, what do you mean I can't just hug people? I would put the salad dressing in your shopping cart at the grocery store and say, you'll thank me later. Like, I didn't know that wasn't okay, right? So the whole parents' job is to esteem their child so that they learn how to esteem themselves, and that so that when they come up against maybe another kid in school when they're little and that child says, you're mean, I don't like you, you did this, they can do an internal search and go, I don't believe that about me, but you're entitled to that, right? Instead of going internal and imploding, or external and exploding, because when our thoughts create our reality, if our thoughts can make us sick, our thoughts can make us well, right? So if we don't process things in a healthy way, we explode or we implode. Implode, make ourselves sick. Explode is what you see all over the news every day, you know? And in the last couple of months, I've done a couple of comedy hypnosis shows, which have been really fun and very enlightening, and I've learned a lot about myself and a lot about, you know, how trance works, and it's fascinating. It's pretty cool. That blinking light's making me crazy. So, you know, what I didn't realize when I was going through therapy, meditation, sweat lodges, all the things to heal the upset or on this seeking path of how to not feel this way. I didn't realize everything I was doing was away from. I don't want to feel that way, right? And I learned from, I've studied with so many of the great people that are here in this conference and just in our world. Chris Bowman says, you can't get in the taxi and say, I just don't want to be here, right? Until you give them a destination, they won't go. I don't want to feel fat. I don't want to feel ugly. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to feel stressed. I don't want to be scared. So like when my clients come in, I don't want, they're all in the past, right? And if everything's predicated on our past, because our brain is an archive of the past, if we take our past and set it on our future, we're going to continue that loop and keep getting more of what we've already had, right? And if that's already not working, but all we have is that I know how it's going to turn out because it's always been this way, we can't expect anything other than it's going to continue to go this way because that's how it's always been, right? So if we can recognize that there's the fact and then there are the thoughts around the fact, right? So I lost my job, broke up with a partner, somebody died. That's the fact, right? What we go into orbit with is our thoughts, right? And if you have a belief in a higher power or a higher self, if those thoughts don't feel good, what if they're just fucking wrong? What if they're just wrong? Lost my job, I'm gonna lose my house, I'm gonna lose my family, we're gonna be on the street, I'm not gonna pay my car. Lost my job is the only thing that happened, right? We broke up, oh, I'm never gonna find another partner, and we make ourselves go into orbit. The only thing that happened was they broke up, we broke up. Who knows who did, it doesn't matter who left. There's only one fact and the rest is all our thoughts, right? So we can make ourselves powerful, or we can auger ourselves into the ground. And we tell that story again and again and again about how it went because we can't see the possibility, right? So if I'm in a dark thought, in a survival, in the lower chakras, I can't create. I can't see what's option. I can't help people. I can't, if someone doesn't believe that they're worthy of the healing, they won't do the work, right? So it's been a fascinating process learning how to make that shift, right? And you guys have been doing this, all of you probably longer than I have. So what if what's keeping them stuck isn't even addiction? What if it's emotional immaturity? What if it's a maturity drama? Because I can't say, what do you mean? Why are you gonna stop it, right? That Bob Newhart, stop it, right? That, as much as I'd like to do that, I can do that for myself, but I don't do that with clients, right? So, it's not even identity confusion or this is just how I've always been. This is just my pattern. This is what I do. What if it's a strategy, a habit? We can shift strategies and habits, but if that's who you think you are, I'm not gonna fight you against your limitations. If you wanna argue for your limitations, you may have them and continue to do what you've always done, right? So when I get people, everything I do is on Zoom. I have a few clients that are live, but most of it's on Zoom. So, when I get people in front of me, this strategy, there's, the people pleasing is a strategy for staying safe. Isolation is a strategy for avoiding rejection. Rebellion is a strategy for feeling in control. Perfection is a strategy for earning love. We're running a strategy that we're not aware of. We think it's just who we are. We can't shift it, right? So we're all shifting the habit, shifting the thought, shifting the limiting belief, the fear, the anxiety, whatever people come in with and say this, which I'm like, don't identify with that, right? I have a dog that has a diagnosis of hemangiosarcoma, which comes with an average 86-day lifespan. I don't say he has cancer. That diagnosis came, on the 25th, 2.5 years ago, he came with an 86-day expiration date. But I say he's a miracle bear. He has a diagnosis. I don't say he has it, right? And I think that, and there are a lot of dogs that had this diagnosis and they caught it at stage 1 like I did and it hadn't ruptured and it hadn't spread. But every day is a gift, man. I just pour into him, right? So when I found this diagnosis out, the people on that group said, you gotta change your energy. Don't be sad around him. Don't be sad in front of him. Go be sad in the bathroom, be sad in the car. And I'm like, he's the Velcro. He's in the bathroom, he's in the car, he's with me everywhere. He's just only not here because it's 100 degrees outside and it's a 14-hour day. But I usually bring him when I'm in January in Vegas. He's always with me. I got him the jacket, the outfit, so he could be with me, right? So the other dogs that had this diagnosis, he's the record holder, because I refuse to say, even for my dog, to identify that he has it, right? And I think that energy it's the further and further away we get from that diagnosis, the more powerful I understand that the energy is, that I don't say he's a victim of this, or he's fighting, or he's battling. He's a miracle bear. He's thriving. He's never had, he's been all over the country. He's been on beaches and mountains in Aspen. We go from the beach in Florida to the Aspen Mountains. He was at the conference in St. Louis with me a year and a half ago. He's been everywhere, because I'm not saying, oh geez, right? So our energy is not just for us, and it vibrates out, right? So the maturity drama. Are you familiar? You're all familiar with Virginia Satir, I hope, yeah? So, these are strategies for emotional survival, right? They get mistaken as an identity. So they're not personality types, they're just adaptive masks that we take on. And they're excuses, right? So the placator isn't weak, they learn to minimize themselves to keep them safe. So as children in unhealthy parented households, children learn it's not safe to have needs and wants. So when the parent feels blame, they're gonna shame the child. It's never enough for you. I've done everything. Because they can't sit in the discomfort of knowing that they can't parent, right? So the child ends up having to learn how to parent themselves at some point. If somebody gets in there and says, you are worthy, what are you doing to yourself, honey? Don't do that, this is not healthy. And they build that child up, right? Sometimes that doesn't happen until they're adults and they learn about codependence and that they have to self-parent now. And it's a lot harder to reparent as an adult than it would have been to have healthy parents as a child, right? So that's a big part of what I do, because I think a lot of people that are in recovery from whatever it is they've survived as a survival skill that then maybe turned into a character defect that no longer serves them. Like when I'm scared, I still lie, because as a child I had to lie, because I didn't know that if I told the truth and got in trouble, I wasn't gonna get kicked out of my house when I was 6. But I thought if I just placate and please my parent, it's safer than having that, you should be sorry. Nothing was worse than that disappointment, that disgust, that look, right? I'd rather be hit than toxic shamed, right? So I just learned to lie, and that kept me what I thought was safe. But every time we placate and we do that, a little chip falls off onto the ground and dies, and we don't know it. And by the time we're adults, there's a pile of chips and a skeleton of a person who's wrapped in all this bandage and all these masks, because it's easier to walk on eggshells just so they're not uncomfortable, so that they don't have to be in their feelings, so that they don't have to experience whatever it would be other than anything but disappointed in me, because they have enough on their plate, right? So the blamer is like, I'm like this because my mother did that. I'm like this because right? Anything, it's just excuses. So a big part of this process is helping people level with themselves. Like, it doesn't matter, like, whatever your childhood was, you're maybe not responsible for what happened to you as a child, but you're responsible now as an adult. And you've been responsible as an adult for 40 years, and you're still blaming. You're still eggshelling. You're still overthinking and think, as soon as I get it all done, then I can work on myself. What if that doesn't happen? What if you don't ever get it all done? I've never gotten it all done. There's more shit on my list every day. I could get 150% of the things done on my list, and there's a bigger list waiting for me, right? There's no such thing as getting it all done. So when we're overthinking, and what if this could happen? What if that could happen? What if that, like TJ just said, just as many odds of it going well as it going badly. It's gonna go whichever way, whatever wolf you feed, right? Distractor. If I confuse and distract and I make it funny you don't get to see in. I'll just make you laugh and we'll pretend everything's fine and never deal with it, whatever it is, right? So when people are incongruence, we're whole. We're able to be in the world, just be ourselves in the world, right? We're able to look other people in the eye. We're able to smile and look in the mirror and do the Mel Robbins high five thing, right? We're able to let them. But when we're in that discomfort, everything's the end of the world. What did that mean? Why did they look at me like that? How am I ever going to get past it? We're on the precipice of the cliff all the time. And that's not sustainable and it's exhausting, right? So if you've ever worked with people that are always in that panic, just everything's the end of the world, it's like, babe, take a deep breath. You have a higher power? Who cares who's in office? Do you think your higher power will put the wrong person in office? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, right? When I have clients that have come to me and said, I have lung cancer, Trump gave me lung cancer, and I'm like, if you say so, man, why would you give anybody that kind of power? And the guy died just to prove his story right.
Yes.
Died of lung cancer, blaming someone instead of choosing to seek treatment. Yeah. So you're with me. Yeah. So there's so much fear of being vulnerable, fear of being seen, fear of being, just fear of failure. We're afraid of everything if we're not in a healthy internal state, right? So my job is to identify the stance. What's the excuse? Are they placating? Are they making excuses? Are they blaming? Are they distracting? Are they everything else? And just what we do is we learn patterns, right? Working with people, we learn what kind of patterns look like. And our clients don't know the patterns because they've been running the fucking pattern, right? They can't recognize the pattern. Like when you're like, I don't see it. Well, you can't see the label when you're inside the jar. Until we get some space from it, right? Until we take some steam out of that pot, what is that called?
Pressure.
Thank you. Let the steam out of the pressure cooker. We can't get any distance from what's actually going on. So we pull them out of the pressure cooker, set them over next to the bonfire so they can go, oh, that's a big fire. I'm not on fire. I'm not on fire. Okay, now what's possible? We don't need a fire extinguisher anymore. We're not on fire, right? So I, help them pull them out of that victim, hero, rebel. Pull them out of that, whatever has been keeping that story alive. It's like, wait a minute. This isn't true. Whatever story you've been telling yourself is not true. And how do I know? Because you don't feel good. And your higher power wants you to feel good. So if you're telling yourself a story that's not true, stop telling it. And let's look for what could possibly be true. Right? So we go from the past into if this isn't true, and I know that it's not the end of the world because you're here, you've always been enough, you've always had enough, you'll always be enough, you'll always have enough because you've always had it, or you wouldn't be here now. Right? So to get into that presence, breathe, get into presence, squeeze your fingers, squeeze your toes, and then part of this goes into law of assumption. So it's when people are, all men, women are this way. Well, guess what? Everyone is you pushed out. So if you have an expectation that they're going to show up this way, they can only show up this way. That's all you're going to see. Your reticular activating system is looking for the narcissist, the mean guy, the one that cheats, the one that lies, whatever you think your story is about that type of person, that's the only way they can show up. That's all you're going to see. So the good person with the good integrity doesn't see, you're so far from that vibration. It's like, I tell people that are struggling, I'm like, okay, if you think that all men are this way, have you ever gone to the gas station and there's a girl there with no teeth and she's begging for money? Would you date that girl? That guy, the homeless guy in the corner? No, because you're not at that vibration. You've done enough, albeit poorly, self-work that you're at least up here. So you're not going to date the homeless junkie in the gas station, right? Okay, so the good guy, when you're here and you're drawing the narcissist, you're drawing the mean guy, you're drawing the cheater, that's a match of who you think you deserve, right? So until you raise your self-concept, the guy that doesn't cheat, that doesn't lie, that isn't a narcissist, that is calm and is quiet and is supportive and is your cheerleader, you're the junkie in the gas station. You're never gonna match that vibration because they've done all that work, right? And it's possible to do that work quickly through hypnosis, through repetition, because the story that I've been repeating, that you've been repeating, what they've been repeating is guys are this, right? Grinding it into the subconscious, augering it into the ground, right? So we know the brain loves that repetition. So now I create tapes for each person. Wake up wake up happy tapes. Listen to this before you go to sleep, tapes. Is there even such a thing as audios? To reroute that neural pathway, because whatever that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, started out as a little bitty single track, then it became a sidewalk, then they paved it into a road, now it's a superhighway, and we believe it because it's so deeply embedded, right? So that neural pathway, the new one, we're gonna start a new little pathway, and the brain's gonna go, I don't think so, I don't think so, and eventually it's gonna go, oh, I'm not that bad, oh, I'm better, and then the pathway, the sidewalk, the road, the superhighway begins, right, as we know. So a big part of this, as any process is, the beliefs that we told ourselves on repeat 100 million times. Stopping that. I don't even try to uninstall. We're gonna just install a new one, and you're just gonna eventually quit choosing the old one because you'll start to see that this feels so much better. And when it feels better, you wanna do it. And sometimes you still wanna touch the tender spot because it's familiar, because it's all we know, because it's how I've always been, right? Nope, we're going to the good side. We're not doing that shit anymore. That doesn't serve me, right? And as we start to recognize that, we've agreed that we want to pave that road, right? So they don't need more behavior change. They need a new strategy so that they can take on the new identity, right? So I help them embody the new version of themselves that doesn't have to do the placating, the blaming, the distracting, the overthinking. And hypnosis is the shortcut to that. NLP is the shortcut to that, right? It allows them to rehearse the new version of themselves. Because if we can't embody it, it's still running alongside us or just outside, right? So, and sometimes what I'll say is, do you know anyone that has a relationship like that? How would they respond in this situation? Do you know anyone that has that job? How do they act, right? So who would you have to be tomorrow when you get your nails done? Who are you? Who's the new you getting her nails done? Talking to the front desk, ordering the drink, tipping the housekeeping. What does that person look like? The one that you say that you want, right? Because more often people don't even know what they want, right? What do you want to feel? This is how you feel now. What do you want to feel? I just don't want to feel fat. I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel upset. I don't want to feel, what do you want? Not that, what do you want? They can't come up with it. Okay, so let's start with what you don't want. And I don't want to feel fat. I want to feel thin and light and strong and lean. That's a not fat. If fat's really the thing, and I don't think it is. I don't want to feel anxious. Okay, what's not anxious? Powerful, light, easy. I want people to go away from me feeling better. That's a lot of not anxious, right? So until we have the want, the not want is too big. And again, if they don't feel like they're worthy of the healing, they won't do the work. So a lot of times the affirmations start as, you're amazing, you can do this. Because they need it in third person, because when it's I'm amazing and they don't feel it, it bounces out. So I'll start in you're this, maybe for a couple weeks. And then the audio's changed to I am, and they can step into that, and they can see their circle of excellence and be like, yes, right? Where that wasn't even remotely possible in the before picture. Teresa does the kind of work, trauma work, that the person after a while is unrecognizable than the person that walked in. So that photograph is critical, right? I aspire to be able to do that at some point. That like, oh my God, they don't even look like themselves from when we met. I mean, that because the external is just it's the visual of what's really happening inside, right? So if this is that dramatic, this had to change, right? So have anyone heard of Recovery Dharma? It's a Buddhist recovery program group. And I'm thrilled that sobriety is trending right now, right? A lot of people are talking about being sober and not drinking, and a lot of the studies are coming out about how much physical trauma is done to the body from drinking. Even they're saying like even 1 drink a day. They used to in the 90s say 1 drink a day is good for you. Now they're like, not even 1. And I'm like, really? So I've, in 34 years of being sober, I've seen a lot of